let's talk about exclusionary architecture and design. Exclusionary architecture is an urban design strategy that purposely restricts the use of public spaces for shelter or rest. It can be hard to recognize because it's often camouflaged and built into structures like these. It can also look like the absence of structures such as benches or public restrooms.
You know the saying, the cheaper option always ends up being more expensive? I feel that so aggressively applies to the way America decides to solve problems. Always band-aids on broken arms. Our government is having to continuously spend our tax dollars to prevent homeless people from existing safely, or corralling them like beasts into different neighborhoods or cities, or busing them across the country with one-way tickets, instead of making the few time investments in finding ways to prevent homelessness. If you're going to spend my tax dollars anyway, put people in houses, not on dystopian spiky benches.
What's something diabolical a corporation was caught doing? Bayer selling HIV-tainted medicine to patients in Asia and Latin America back in the 80s. What the fuck? How is that even possible? Medicine used to treat hemophilia was made with plasma from civilian donors, but the manufacturing process would mix thousands of donations together, allowing potentially all of the final product to be tainted if any donor had HIV. Keep in mind this was before they fully understood HIV transmission or had reliable testing. So they just continued to sell their medicine despite the AIDS epidemic? Once HIV was linked to blood transmissions, the entire industry created a heat treatment for the medication that killed the virus. But Bayer told its distributors in Asia and Latin America to sell its non-heat treated medicine first, while specifically telling its North American and European distributors to only sell the safer heat treated version. That's absolutely terrifying. Had Bayer done anything fucked up like this before? Oh my goodness, you don't know? No? Wait, what? Bayer operated in Germany during World War II. They used the lack of legal and ethical constraints of the war to perform medical experiments on unwilling human subjects. If you could imagine where there would be unwilling people in Germany at the time. Holy shit, how are they still a company? Are there any other companies that worked with the Germans in World War II still around? Like an alarming amount. Who? IBM, Volkswagen, Coca-Cola, and Fanta, Standard Oil, which would eventually become Exxon. Dude, that's so messed. The Associated Press, Ford, GE, Chase Bank, Shell, and Random House. I think I need to lie down.
Man, this COVID thing is wild. I heard they might be shutting down school for a week. Over a year later, get away from me. Man, I love the non-binary demon's expression. I like it too. It looks like the flag from that one country with the dragon on its flag. Welsh, I think. The IRS are literally a group of grown-ass men asking us for money. LMAO, go get a job. Worry about your own bag, dumbass. Why do they care if I'm married? Just say you want to kiss me. Girl, help, my mutuals are sexualizing the senior citizen again. Is it Mads Mikkelsen again? Is it ever not? Maybe if Bernie showed a little more skin. Sorry, but we are no longer accepting applications to join our toxic polycule. Please wait 9 to 10 business weeks until one of us has been voted out through trial of competitive strip Jenga matches. Bites you. You're trans now. Lord, the woman you've put on this earth to cook, clean, and give birth are fucking each other. Wouldst thou like to live fergaliciously?
This one's for the white folks. Growing up, do you guys remember ever seeing examples of black excellence in music and athletics and art and thinking, of course, they're black. Like, of course it's good. Of course they can perform to that level. Of course they sound like that. Of course they look like that. They're black. Because I remember thinking that all the time. I also remember hearing from people, well, black people are just better at dancing. They are just better at certain music. They are just better at singing. They are just better in athletics. But good things like compliments can't exist in a vacuum in an oppressive system. And I just had somebody tell me, when I had recounted a bunch of things I had gotten done at once, when I just kind of went into production mode, got a ton of things done, lots of different projects all at once. And they laughed and they were like, well, that's the ADHD for you. Didn't like that. People will try to make the best out of their marginalizations, but their accomplishments are almost always in spite of those marginalizations.
So I've said it before, but there's a very stiff competition for the title of biggest clown under the employ of the Daily Wire. But I think very few people could argue that the biggest creep there is anybody but Matt Walsh. So back in February, Eli Ehrlich posted a Twitter thread detailing the many ways in which Matt Walsh and his crew tried to trick her into appearing in his shitty documentary, including having his producer email her using a name she doesn't use professionally, not including the names of the companies involved on the release form, outright lying saying the film was self-funded, and making an entire ass front organization. And when that thread went viral, it prompted a whole bunch of other people to say, hey, I also got tricked into this, some of whom were minors. And it gets worse. Fast forward to this month, and he drops the trailer where it reveals that the film is actually about how he's too stupid to use a Wikipedia.
Please, if one person could tell me what a woman is.
You are not here for women! We ask you to leave!
What is that?
Although I guess Wikipedia has to cite sources, so I can see why he would avoid that. But what's actually important about this trailer is the fact that Matt used photos of a bunch of trans people without their knowledge or consent. So, you know, not the most ethical of decisions. But wait, there's more! Many people were quick to point out that the trailer uses an image of a 15-year-old trans boy post-top surgery. So, unless Matt has suddenly switched his tune on trans people's identities and he believes that trans men are men now, which the existence of the film kinda suggests otherwise, Matt? Not a great look for you, legally speaking. Now, coincidentally, I also just filmed the documentary, and weirdly enough, I didn't find myself having to do any of that shit. It's almost like when you know you have bad and dishonest intentions, you kinda have to do some shady shit in order to get people to talk to you.
So anti-theism is bad for several reasons. Anti-theism is the idea of like being against religion, like all religions. For one, it misrepresents how the ruling class operates, and it honestly shifts blame off of the ruling class for oppression. Because if you think religion is inherently bad, you're like, oh, all of the world's problems stem from religion. And it basically like puts blame onto religious people just in general, rather than the people hoarding wealth and resources. I feel like being anti-theist actually works in the benefit of the ruling class. Like, sounds like a psyop to me. There is a reason why the atheism to fascism pipeline exists. And atheism can turn into Islamophobia, anti-Semitism real quick. It also ignores how secularism is also used as a tool of the ruling class to oppress racial and religious minorities. Like, believe it or not, secularism is an ideology itself. And it really reflects the white supremacist idea of like objectivity. Anti-theists largely will believe that religious, spiritual people are either stupid or mentally ill or brainwashed. If you say this stuff about religious people or believe this stuff, who do you think that's going to hurt? Is it going to be people who are oppressed for their religion? Probably. And if you're like, oh, well, I'm not talking about all religions, I'm just talking about like fascist, white supremacist Christians. And it's like, well, then just say that. Like, and if you're like, oh, not all religions, just like the good ones. Well, what does that even fucking mean? It's like, oh, like the non-violent ones, like Buddhism or something. But again, like that ignores how the ruling class uses religion to oppress and to control. If you don't already know, you can look up what happened in Myanmar. It also ignores how religion has been a tool of liberation. So if you like, a more accurate way to look at it is that like religion is this really great force. It can be used for bad or for good. It's not just inherently bad. That's not what's happening. Like, it's not only harmful, but you're just like literally wrong. I don't know what else to say. And I used to be anti-theist too. Like, I get it. But it's just, on top of everything I just said, it's completely unproductive. What does that belief provide us? Does that help us in eradicating class society? Like, personally, I don't think so. I don't think it's helpful at all. Oh my God, am I yelling? I'm literally yelling.
I think that it's time that white people stopped representing marginalized groups. Hear me out, I'm wearing glasses. I was watching The Gilded Age not too long ago, and there were two women, one black, one white, and they were trying to hail a cab. The white woman hails the cab, the guy stops, and then he looks at her friend and says, I'm not taking her. The black woman says, let me hail the cab. If he stops, we know he's going to take me along. Black person has to hail the cab just to make sure that they will be taken along as well. Apply this to something tangible, like the women's right to vote. It was a white woman who was the head of the suffragette movement that gave women the right to vote. But when they won the right to vote, it wasn't all women, it was white women. But if it had been a brown woman who was at the head of the suffragette movement and they won the right to vote for women, then it would have had to include all women. Because white is the default. You guys are always going to get the right, regardless of who's fighting for you. It's the same thing with the LGBTQ community. We fought for everybody's right to marry. Love is love. Except that's not what happened. White people got the right to marry who they wanted. White love is love. And don't misunderstand me, I know that same-sex couples of any race are still being treated like garbage. Couples that include a brown person are turned away at a much higher rate than a couple that's including two white people. So if we have more brown people representing the marginalized groups, then everybody benefits. If we continue to have white people representing the marginalized groups, then only white people in that marginalized group get any benefit.
I just want to read a passage that really stuck out to me in my reread of Bell Hooks' Salvation, Black People, Black Love. Loving blackness means that we love all of who we are, and that includes gay black people. In recent years, I have been asked by young black heterosexual militants who still wrongly cling to the homophobia Black Power condone whether or not we should, quote, accept the gays, unquote. I remind them that gay black people are here to stay and not looking to heterosexuals to validate their reality, their worth, their authenticity. Decolonized gay black people are doing the work of self-love. While it hurts when straight black people are not allies in the struggle or are blatantly homophobic, the burden of change has shifted. Black heterosexuals must be held accountable for homophobia and do the work of challenge and change. Especially as we approach the intersection of Juneteenth and Pride Month. If your activism isn't intersectional, if it doesn't include gay black people, black women, and black trans people, or black disabled people, it's not true activism. Homophobia and transphobia are both constructs of white supremacy, so if you hold on to those ideas, you are then perpetuating white supremacy.
This is a PSA to any members of my biological family. If you continue to interact with this page, I will come out to Nana at the next family reunion. That's not a promise, it is a threat. Block me now.
Delta Airlines causing people to have nervous breakdowns because of all the canceled flights.
The reaction to this video genuinely scares me. So many people in the comment section are like, oh my god, is she 5? Is she 2? Even pretty big creators made videos teasing her.
Aw, is it her second birthday? I heard the Terrible 2s are absolutely horrendous.
I don't know this girl's medical history or mental health background, but as somebody with autism who has had very public meltdowns, if I were being filmed, it would make the moment 100 times worse. The reason I'm making this video isn't to attack the creators who are kind of making a joke out of it, but to urge people not to film people who are having very public meltdowns. Everyone likes to say they're all for mental health and they're not ableist, but then they see somebody exhibiting signs of abnormal behavior and decide to whip out their phones or post it to TikTok and be like, hey guys, look at how bratty this person is. I even saw a video filming this girl who was freaking out about her mom taking her phone, and her reaction was very indicative of autistic traits, things that I have done in the past, and I just felt so sad that everybody says they care about mental health or people suffering, and then they see somebody in a moment that they don't understand and they jump to teasing them online.
No, because people are so incredibly racist towards indigenous people, and they don't even realize it. I just saw this girl, she was posting, feeling cute, wearing pastel pink and white, and everyone's going, oh, you're white, you're white, you're white, you're Asian fishing, because she has slanted eyes. It wasn't her makeup, It's because she's indigenous, and indigenous people have slanted eyes. So the moment they don't fit their freaking stereotypes, the moment she's not freaking at a powwow, she's not indigenous anymore. She's Asian fishing. She's white. Like, no, that's not it.
Okay, with the release of Our Flag Means Death and Heartstopper and the casting decisions of the new PJO trio and the casting decision of Doctor Who and the casting decision of that Batman Spotify thing, and even with Marvel Disney, with Moon Knight and Kamala Khan and Encanto and Turning Red, it feels like we're really in this place of like diversity in media, like really having like a solid foothold and like a lot of these stories like finally being told. But then you shift to the American political system in this current situation, and it's how do I say this? Not great for many peoples, right? And it's like, I know, first of all, the lesson to be like learned is that like representation in media cannot be the beginning or the end of your politics, right? Like it can't begin and end there because there's always like bigger problems. But I can admit that it does cause like a little bit of cognitive dissonance where it's just kind of like, oh my God, it's so cool that we got like a non-binary like pirate who has their own arc in this series. Wait, what are they doing to trans kids? You know what I mean? Like, it's like...
He's gay, but he has a special connection to classical music. There's many things that are interesting about him.
Alabama, Alaska, Arizona, Arkansas, California, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, Florida, Georgia, Hawaii, Idaho, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maine, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, Minnesota, Mississippi, Missouri, Montana, Nebraska, Nevada, New Hampshire, New Jersey, New Mexico, New York, North Carolina, North Dakota, Ohio, Oklahoma, Oregon, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, South Carolina, South Dakota, Tennessee, Texas, Utah, Vermont, Virginia, Washington, West Virginia, Wisconsin, Wyoming.
A lot of cops are good and a lot of cops are bad, but the system needs to be updated.
Dear Oxpew Roo 2, there is no reform for a system built upon the oppression of a lower class, as well as one invented to return slaves to their masters. Throw it away and improve the community. ACAB, Compañero Cruz.
That was fucking scary. My heart's going pitter-patter, pitter-patter. I feel sick, like I could throw up.
So I've never really been able to get behind the best friends to lovers trope unless it's queer, and I think I just figured out why. Obviously, it is partially because all tropes are inherently better when they're queer, but it's bigger than that. So like a big part of the best friends to lovers trope, or at least the part that gets me feeling emotions, is sort of the idea of like, we're so close already, but I want more. It's not enough, but also it has to be enough because you don't feel the same way and I don't want to ruin everything. But if it's a man and a woman, you can't really have that level of closeness in a friendship without like people assuming it's romantic and it being assumed to be romantic because of the way that society is so heteronormative, which sucks, but it is the way it is. And so like you can't have that feeling of like lying in bed next to them and looking into their eyes and thinking, no, you shouldn't be feeling like this, because all of society is telling you that you can and should be feeling like this. So you can't have that same level of yearning that like makes the trope work so well, in my opinion.
Hello, and welcome back to Things Adolf Hitler Hated That I, as a Jewish Woman, Continue to Do Out of Spite. Today we are back to adornment and looking good. So I have two things for you today. Adolf Hitler was not a fan of both perfume and hair dye. Let's do perfume first. So, interestingly enough, Eva Braun was a huge fan of perfume and she wore it all the time and he didn't say anything about it. Now, I'm going to keep wearing perfume because it smells lovely and I'm a fan. I like Trésor by Lancôme, but here's the thing. Lancôme is owned by L'Oreal, which was founded by a Nazi sympathizer. As far as hair dye goes, I've been dyeing my hair since I was 16 years old. because I like how I look with different hair colors. And if I don't dye my hair, I look like Lord Baelish from Game of Thrones. So I'm gonna keep right on doing that as well.
Are you queer? Do you feel a sudden rage taking over your body when you hear that the wealth gap is now bigger than it's ever been? Do you believe that colonialism never ended and it's actually deeply intertwined with foreign investment and aid in former colonies? Do you love glitter when it's biodegradable? Do you think that the privatization of healthcare and education is bad? Like really bad? Do you think that advertising pure products exclusively to women is extremely transphobic? If the answer to all of those questions was yes, hi, I'm Mami, politics and IR student and future lawyer who believes that every issue is a gender issue. I am here to provide wild makeup, a Basque accent, and the wisdom I've acquired after promising my firstborn to a student loans company. You're welcome.
Well, Nancy.